today. We're going to go over the answers to the inverse. Okay, so inverse is very similar to what you did, except it's like the opposite kind of. It's just a different step. So we've got our triangle here. X is right here. This is our angle. 4 would be our what? Opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Adjacent. 5 would be opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Hypotenuse. Okay, so if we have adjacent and hypotenuse, according to SOHCAHTOA, what are we using? Cosine. So we're doing the cosine of x equals the adjacent 4 over the opposite 5. Now, we don't have an angle to plug in here. What we're going to do is just take the inverse of cosine to find x, which is cosine of -1, 4 over 5. So we're literally picking up our calculator. We're hitting trig, and instead of cosine, I'm doing that cosine of -1, and then 4 divided by 5. And that is my answer. X equals 36.87 degrees. I'm done. That's the whole thing. Let's try a couple more. Okay, so here's x. What is 6 to x? It's the opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? And what is 12? So what am I using, sine, cosine, or tangent? You should not be talking unless you're answering my question right now. So cosine of x equals the adjacent 6. Yep. So it's the cosine of x equals the adjacent 6 over the hypotenuse 12. And then remember, I don't have an angle next to cosine. So to get rid of cosine, you use the inverse cosine. Cosine of -1, 6 over 12. So I literally go to my calculator, hit the trig button, and I'll see cosine of -1 right under cosine. 6 divided by 12, and I get 60. So x equals 60 degrees. Okay. Let's look at number 2. Here's x. 5 is my opposite. 10 is my adjacent. Okay, so I've got opposite and adjacent, which means I'm going to use what? Tan. So tan of that x equals opposite 5 or adjacent 10. So what am I going to put in my calculator? Tan of -1, 5 divided by 10 equals x. So in my calculator, trig button, tan the -1, 5 divided by 10, which gives me x equals 26.6, we'll say. Or we can say 5.7 when we say 6 degrees. How are we feeling about this? Pretty easy? Let's do a couple more. All right, let's look at number 3. Okay, here's my angle. What is 3 to that angle? Opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Adjacent, good. What is 7? Hypotenuse and adjacent means I use which trig function? Cosine, good. Cosine of x equals 3 over 7. So cosine of -1, 3 over 7 equals x. So x equals, am I going too fast?
No.
Okay. I get 64.6 degrees. All right, guys, why don't you try the next 5, and then we'll go over the answers, okay? Why don't you try the next 5? And I'm going to walk around and help. So you guys, I know a lot of you have scheduling. If you want me to sign it, I will. You should be either taking Algebra 2 or Algebra 2 Part 1. Algebra 2 Part 1 is taken over 2 years. So you take Algebra 2 Part 1 next year and the year after Algebra 2.
Are we supposed to get a sign? I'm still trying to see if I can actually do other stuff.
You just want to do Algebra 2?
Okay. Give me a second. Think I got it. Yep.
Anybody need help with inverse? I'm going to go over these very soon. Put that. Great, Algebra 2 or Algebra 2 Part 1. Okay.
I don't know if I can take it.
You're like, I'm like, I don't know if I can take it.
I don't know if I can take it.
I want to take this, so it's like,
I don't know if I can take it. Because like if I can take it, and then you have two classes.
Algebra 2 Part 2 will take not next year, but the year after.
But if I can't take it,
Okay, one more minute, guys, and I'm going to go over the answers.
I want to try and take it.
I'm not.
I don't have to do that.
There's 5 preferences. You have to take research.
I did take your signature.
I'm gonna take one of we take one. Because if you're doing out of order, see, that's been my problem. I want to take those. Algebra 1 is going back normal. Algebra 1, Algebra 2, both. But basically, after Algebra 1, just wait. And we just go through.
Okay, guys, let's go over the rest of these. Number 4, we've got adjacent and hypotenuse, so we're going to use cosine again. Cosine of x equals adjacent 5 or over hypotenuse 12. So that's cosine of negative 1, 5 over 12 equals x. So again, cosine -1. 5 divided by 12 gives us 65.4 degrees. Okay, I'm going over the answers. You should be paying attention. Okay, number 5. This is opposite. This is hypotenuse, so we're going to use sine of y equals opposite over hypotenuse. So sine of -1, 2 over 8 equals x. So again, trig, sine of -1, 2 divided by 8. Please stop talking. Gives me 14.5 degrees equals x. Number 6, we've got opposite and hypotenuse. So again, we have sine of x equals 6 over 11. So the inverse sine of 6 over 11 equals x. So x equals, you guys feel pretty comfortable with this? You're getting the same answers? X is 33.1 degrees. Number 7, we've got the angle. This is my opposite. This is my adjacent. So what do I got, guys? Tan. Good. Tan of y equals opposite 6 over adjacent 4. So inverse tan, 6 divided by 4 equals x. So x equals inverse tan, 6 divided by 4 gives us 56.3 degrees. Number 8, this is my opposite over adjacent. So again, I'm going to do tan of x equals opposite 5 over adjacent 4. So inverse tan, 5 over 4 equals x. So x equals inverse tan, 5 divided by 4 gives me 51.3 degrees. 51.3, yeah, degrees. Okay, anybody have any questions about any of these? All right, you guys feel comfortable doing your homework now?
Yep.
Got lots of time left. Do your homework. Make sure you let me know about your